What does it mean to have faith? I might have faith in someone or something. I might have faith that the stock market will go back up after a downturn. I might have faith that someone will do the right thing or achieve something when it seems like the chips are down. I might have faith that the Colts will make the playoffs, or that a politician or a prodigal kid will turn things around. Whatever the case, faith in the broadest sense has two components: a subject, the person who is exercising faith, and an object, the what or whom in which that faith is placed. When we talk about faith, we usually do so in the context of some level of uncertainty. We don't, for instance, say things like, I have faith that 2 + 2 = 4, or I have faith that the water in my pot will boil when I turn on the burner on my stove. For us to use the word faith, there's always some gap between what we can see and what we can't. We don't have to be totally in the dark to use the word faith. When the Colts came back from a huge halftime deficit against the Patriots back in the 2006 AFC Championship, I can only say I had faith when I didn't know the outcome with absolute certainty. Once the game was over and the outcome was determined, my faith became sight. So how does faith work when it comes to religion in general and Christianity in particular? Let's start with the object of faith. What does it mean to say that we have faith in God or faith in Jesus? When we look at the object of our faith, we're focusing on the identity or characteristics of whatever it is we're placing our faith in: God, Jesus, the Bible, etc. A follower of Jesus and a follower of Allah might both say that they have faith in God, but their definition of God would be different. Both might even use the word Jesus, but their understanding would be different. The writer of Hebrews says that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. This word that the King James translates as substance comes from a Greek word that gives us the word picture of a foundation, something on which you can build. Others translate the same word more figuratively and say that faith is the confidence of things hoped for. Let's follow this word picture for a moment. In this sense, our faith is only as strong as the object in which our faith is placed. As followers of Jesus, we place our faith in Jesus himself, and we transfer our trust to him. Yes, I'm making a commitment to following the teachings of Jesus. Yes, I am agreeing to the statements Jesus made about himself. Yes, I'm on the journey of learning more about the spiritual significance of Jesus and concepts like sin and salvation. And I also am taking steps toward a closer relationship with Jesus. This is the part that makes the journey different. I might, for instance, really be into a particular writer or philosopher. I might read his or her books. I might listen to their podcasts. I might be an admirer or a fan. I might even start to model my behavior after this person. I could do all these things, but that doesn't mean that I have an actual personal relationship with that person. This is what Jesus invites us to do. Paul tells us in Philippians 2:1 that we are united with Christ, that we can receive comfort from his love. So how is this type of relationship even possible? What does it look like? And how do we grow in this relationship? These are all questions related to our faith. All right, hey, today we're talking about faith. And in Philippians 3, which is the text that we're talking about today, I want to walk you through visually what's happening in Paul's life and then how that can apply to us in our own faith journey. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a picture here. And this is over here, this is trust in me. And we see this in Paul's life. He says there was a time in Philippians 3 where he talks about his resume. He talks about being the Hebrew of Hebrews and his Pharisee. He was a Pharisee and he was lots of education and really zealous and all this, but it was all about his actual achievement and record and resume, all those things. But he takes a different viewpoint. And towards the end of that chapter, he actually says all these things are, I'll give you a highly technical word here, garbage. That's the word that he uses. He says all these things are actually garbage or rubbish in other translations. And what's happening in Paul's life, on the one hand, he moves from trusting in himself to viewing all those things differently. All right, so where he once trusted in his resume, think about what that looks like. He trusted in his own moral record. And when you think about that, his whole identity was something he was pursuing. So in some sense, we might even say he was trying to kind of create his own identity. It's a little bit more of a modern, current way of thinking about it, but in many ways, it was all about his own achievement, his own performance. This is a very self-focused way to do life. It's very transactional. It's isolated. And it leads to some fear and worry. So when we think about our own faith journey, part of this is theological. It's the object of our faith. It's those beliefs. It's all this stuff about who Jesus is and who we're trusting and all that. And it's experiential. So here, this is a posture where I am completely trusting in myself, and these are the byproducts of what I receive. Now, Paul's going to make a transfer here, and as I said, he's trusting in himself to viewing that as garbage. And then we might use another line here to talk about trust in Jesus. So let's think about these two processes for a second. Here, I'm trusting in my own resume, my own record. Here we're making that transition, and it's Jesus's record. It's his perfect record, the one who is without sin, who died for us, and all these things we've talked about. It's not creating your own identity, but it's finding your identity as a child of God. And Paul will use all this language like we are united with Christ. We are in Christ. It's all this relational language that he's used to describe. And we move from being self-focused to other-focused. Even back last week in Philippians 2, our attitude should be the same as Jesus, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, and that becomes the foundation for loving others and not being so self-centered. Instead of being transactional, our relationships are rooted in love. Instead of isolation, we find community. Really cool when you look throughout the letter, you see all this relationship language that's connected to Jesus, that's with the Spirit, but that's also with other believers. And then this fear and worry can become joy and peace. So that's kind of the movement that's going here. So as Paul says, I look differently, I consider these things garbage. Now he's moving closer to Jesus in trust. Now what's really sometimes confusing in the Christian life is this seems all about my work, this seems all about achieving, this is faith, these are things that I'm receiving. So where does my work come in? Where does my effort come in? You know, and as the late great Dallas Willard said, grace is not opposed to effort, just to earning. But as you and I kind of walk our Christian life and we have our ups and downs, how do we deal with these two movements? Well, just a simple way to think about it, if we're going to follow Paul, he says, look, live up to what you have already attained. So what have I already attained? Not my work, not my effort, not my resume, but Jesus's. But I am united with Christ. I am a child of God. I didn't do anything to earn that. And because of that, then what can really motivate me is not fear, guilt, shame, but gratitude. I make it my aim to please Jesus in response to his love for me. But we're going to have our ups and downs. We've always got this as our identity. I'm a child of God. I didn't do anything to earn that. That's there. But as I have my ups and downs of life, I lean on that, and then this process of becoming more like Jesus is in my actual experience learning to trust him more. So that's the journey that we're all in. And again, I'm really glad you all are here today to talk more about that and grow stronger in our trust of Jesus.